any general education students now on school grounds with firearms automatically approved for a year upon a community dispatch. Because they're authority class. The problem arises because removed is that are defined, and the regulation gives the superintendent the power to modify the removal of a general education student on a case-by-case basis. So Mr. McCarthy, I stress as made for clarification on this, the removal of students.
Yes, I got that clarification. So the requirement is that the student is removed. The modification is that the superintendent could modify the length of the removal to be something less than 1 year. But there has to be a removal to begin with. You can't modify to the point where there is no removal. So it's just the length of the removal is the answer to the question.
I have a question. Some of the ones you listed in the beginning weren't on my list, like 2330.
Hold on.
And the second question I have is, who writes these? We had a finance meeting this morning, then the power went out, so I didn't get to read all these. So I'm going to abstain. I plan to read them in the second reading.
Any other questions before we vote? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Berner.
I'm going to abstain.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond.
Yes.
Mrs. Thorne.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolver.
Yes.
Mrs. McHugh.
Yes.
Madam Clerk.
Up to the curriculum committee report. There's one item, was somebody to make a motion for that item? Mr. Salmon and Mrs. Gray. Any questions about this item before we vote?
Could you explain it?
It's for the internships
Yes.
with the township.
Right, so similar to the item that we talked about on finance, this goes with that senior internship program so that there's a memorandum between us and the town as to how those students are working with the town as part of the senior internship.
We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Berner.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. Sam.
Yes.
Mrs. White.
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond.
Yes.
Mrs. Thorne.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolver.
Yes.
Mrs. McHugh.
Yes.
Madam Clerk.
We're up to the advocacy committee.
Advocacy is meeting on Monday, so we have next Wednesday. And we actually will be starting at Mount Prospect with the students before we come back to work at that.
Thank you. Ad hoc SEL.
We are meeting Thursday.
Okay. Any liaison reports? Okay. We're up to public comment on non-agenda items. If you have come up, just make sure you tell us your name and address, and you can sign in the clipboard after you speak.
I'd just like to address some of the comments that the board
But if you are truly offended with what it is that people say about how and what we're doing in terms of curriculum and the direction that we need to be going, then maybe being on the Board of Education is not for you. Also, with respect to, having Mr. Markarian receive over 200 emails a day or thereabouts, that comment was, I think, thrown out there. That goes to leadership. Where are the leaders in our district? Where are the leaders moving us forward, taking us forward? As a superintendent, I believe that you should not be getting 200 emails a day if you are an effective leader. If you include the public in comments, if you include the public in decision-making. This whole idea of platooning, what is otherwise known as departmentalization, whereas kids move from class to class and have 4 different teachers. I understand it's a pilot project this year, and then it will go into full effect next year. Where has the public been involved in this decision? Somebody pointed out about the number of surveys that have been done in this district. I don't want another survey. I don't want the 5th grade parents to be surveyed about what they like about it, what they don't like about it. I've asked some people. I've had both positive and negative things. I'm in a departmentalized setting. It works in our building. I think you have to take a look at it from many different angles and facets, and I don't think you have done a good enough job in doing that. We've had special education issues brought up in June 2017 at a Board of Education meeting. And I mentioned this at the last meeting. Mr. Markarian stated there would be follow-up. It's been 2 years, almost 3. We're going on 2.5. Where is the follow-up? There has been no follow-up. We deserve a follow-up. If somebody says, we will follow up with you and we'll make a presentation, then you need to stick with it and keep your word. My wife, myself, and Janice Corrado asked the Board of Education to work together to address specific ongoing issues and form a special education task force with a board chair. No response. So my guess is that you're saying no to that. And I don't know if you would want, or I don't think you're agreeing to it, because I don't think you're going to like what you find if you dig into deeply what is going on in special education in this district. I would like to also follow up what Mrs. Ring said. We're going through some similar things as she is right now, and our daughter's IEP is not being followed, hasn't been since September. We filed an OSEP complaint with the state.
You have about 1 minute.
Okay. And as I suspect, my comments were deliberately censored from the video as part of these open meetings. How are myself, my wife, and other members of the special education community can work with you in good faith if this is what's going on in our district? Because it seems as though you're hiding things. You're sweeping things under the rug, and you're not doing your due diligence and seeing what is going on. We've also had lots of people talk about teachers not answering parent emails. This has been ongoing. I've heard it every year since I've been coming to board meetings. It is now time for a policy. We need teachers to be accountable. We need guidance counselors to be accountable. We need administrators to be accountable to answer an email. It is called courtesy. The fact that you can't even acknowledge that you received an email, I don't have that information, we'll get back to you. I mean, I feel for everybody who's spoken tonight who says, the case manager didn't get back to me. My guidance counselor didn't get back to me. Ever. Why is that acceptable? And nobody on this board will be able to answer that question. Because it's not. You can't tell me why people in this district do that. You can't. So you guys need to take a hard look at the job that you're doing and the big cracks that we have in this district, especially in special ed. don't think any of you have really done research to dive into the problems that exist in special ed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? No? Okay, at this point, I'll close public comment. To board forum. There were 2 items listed there. The first was if we want to continue our discussion about the high school health program, which I think we already started earlier. I can say the comment I made at the last meeting about receiving emails really was that I was disappointed that people didn't like pick up the phone and call us because they know us. So yeah, we get emails, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative, and I think we're used to that. I just, in the past, I think more people have reached out to board members to have personal conversations, and so I think that's where we're going with that comment. So as far as the health, discussion before, does anyone after seeing public comment have anything else they wouldn't say?
I think just listening, can you hear this? Listening to the things that we are now required to have in our policies, all the different things from keeping Narcan and more specifics about drugs, about health, about harassment. I mean, the topics, when you hear the regulations, they're not just for us, but are for everybody. I don't know how anybody can think we don't have things that need to be addressed with our students. If we have these policies that we have to have, it's because there's a problem. So when we say, okay, you mentioned adding 3 weeks, you're talking 15 lessons. 15 lessons that could be on all of these different things that we are now required to have policies on because things are going on in all the schools. Then I think to myself, I've been in this district for a long time. I have 4 children of varying ages, but every year I've sat in the audience and I've heard you talk about, during the summer, we're going to be revamping the English curriculum. During the summer, we're going to be reworking the math curriculum. During the summer, we're going to be working the science curriculum. And nobody says, what? You're doing that, and you're going to start in September? They have the trust that you have put in place, the people who need to know what they need to do to make improvements. Does that mean everything's perfect? No. I really like when someone said, I hope that whatever you're creating is not stagnant. My hope is that for these 3 weeks that we are adding for the sophomores for next year who currently have no help, that they aren't stagnant, that we put something together, that there's training that goes on between now and the fall for the teachers, for whoever's involved in that, and that during the summer they put together 15 lessons that tap into all this different stuff that now we're required to have policy and regulations about, that these kids need to know about, and that we can give trust to the people who are putting this curriculum together and evaluate it. Yes, this lesson was great. Let's keep it for next year. This one, maybe we can spend less time on it, but we've got to do something. We can't do nothing when there's a crisis going on. And I understand for a lot of these kids, yes, they're going to have to miss 15 days of study hall. And I get that for some kids, that's really tough. But when I think about all this stuff that we now have to have regulations for, I'd rather the kids know what happened. When do you need Narcan? How do you handle harassment? What do you do if you get in the car and somebody's been drinking? Those are things we can't shy away from addressing with the kids.
I'm really so glad that you brought up the point about curriculum writing in general. That's the process in public education. Curriculum is written over the summer, and Jen's 100% right. We write different curriculum each summer at different grade levels. It could be kindergarten, it could be sixth grade, it could be 12th grade help. It's not that unusual for that to happen in this way. And, you know, no one's asking to see what the new geometry curriculum looks like before we implement whatever new standards might come through. So I think we just have to bear with the process and have a little bit of faith. And I think also there should be, and I was a strong proponent right from the beginning of the 2 years ago when it was brought to the board's attention that we needed to make some updates to the health curriculum, that we do need professional development and training. And we heard a lot in the process that brought us through the last 2 years about ways to change the type of instruction and bring in more dynamic lessons and have more interactive small group instruction rather than a traditional health lecture, which is, as we all know, has a certain rap among high school students. So we do have information that leads us to believe that there's a better way to do it and that that's what we are on the path to, but we have to get there and we do have to do it together. So I thank you for that.
Question. Because you keep saying we. Can you just clarify that we as a board do not get involved in curriculum?
That was my question.
No, Karen's absolutely right. Just for the Board of Education does not write curriculum. We never have it, we never will it. We're volunteers.
Right, I was just gonna say, I'm the newest person on the board, I'm still going through my trainings, but the very first thing I learned was that the board is high level, that we're not to dictate what exactly is being taught in specific classrooms, to be taught in specific subjects. We're not here to say, well, you must teach a class on nothing. It's important to listen, it's important for us to say, we need to work on this curriculum and pass it down to the experts or the teachers. Is that my understanding? That's the level that we're supposed to be at. Not analyzing and specifically getting into details of everyday teaching. Yeah.
But I think on that end also, like, health represents an interesting point there because we don't get involved in writing physics curriculum because who's going to sit down and say, great, here's a simple machine, something. Health is a little bit different, I think, because it's something that we see all the time, and it's this combination of proactive lessons and reactive lessons. Like, there's the reactive component with vaping where it's just something that bubbles up, and now we're like, oh my God, this is a huge problem. Let's react and put programming on top of it. Whereas on the wellness side, we're trying to, or decision-making side, we're trying to put that as a more proactive stance, like so the kids can, understand how to deal with certain issues before they encounter them. And also it's a real-time curriculum. I mean, it's stuff that, you look on the news and it's just some new random crisis that you didn't even know existed, and now it's like a topic that could be taught in a health class because it has something to do with like real-time social, emotional, and character education issues. So I think health is always a tricky subject that, they maybe have to look at every year, but also just in real time generally. Like they might have to update lessons as we go. And kind of on the side of, one of the public comments was, if what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen the year after that, are we setting something up for like what the long-term vision is? And I guess what I would say is the long-term vision was kind of something back at, I think we did a strategic plan with the, what's the vision of the perfect rich graduate that we'll absolutely never get to. But that's something that we strive for. But I think the idea of, if something works, like what if this works and we added time and it worked, like maybe we should add a little more time, and then what if that worked? But what if it doesn't work? Then we have to go back and look at, maybe taking away something or focusing the curriculum in another direction. I think this is a really, it's in the book too, so I don't want to spoil it a little bit, but it is something that's evolving and in real time, and it's very difficult to calculate, how something will work and what we should do if it does or doesn't work, because we don't know yet.
I also want to, since we were separating, like Dick did, the health curriculum and the SEL stuff, right? Because we have to teach certain things in health that's mandated by the state. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not crazy. Yeah. Everything's getting all mushed up in here. I mean, I am a little crazy, but that's besides the point. I'm on the board, nuts, not in my mind. So there's certain things in health, like the state says you have to teach this to all the kids. And they're having trouble covering those things in the time we're giving them right now. So we have to, and we're redoing the health, and deliver it in a different way. There's certain things we have to deliver, we have to do it, right? I mean, just so everyone knows. And then the SEL, we want to, it does all mush in together because it just lends itself to it. But besides the mandated health curriculum, we want to do the SEL, social emotional stuff as well. So I know that it gets kind of confused, but there's a lot, and it also, I mean, they run over into each other. There's the stuff that they mandate you want to teach anyway, but it's also you have to teach it. So, I mean, it's a little depressing thinking that, I don't mind being lectured and told how I'm supposed to feel or anything like that. I mean, I get it. I get it. I volunteer to be on the board, but it doesn't make me, I'm not human, that when I read things and I find it to be a personal attack, that I don't take offense. I don't get offended easily at all. Like, ask anybody. But after a while, I feel like, I would never want to do something I would never want to do something I thought would hurt kids. That's just not something I think, it's not what I would want. It's not why I'm on the board. I think we're compromising now because we think that this kind of information will really help more kids. It will help most kids. I mean, it's stuff they need to know. So I don't think a prerequisite for being on the board is that you read emails and then you get mad. I mean, I don't think that disqualifies you for being on the Board of Education. I think what disqualifies you for being on the Board of Education is you don't give a crap about kids or the outcome of the kids. And I do not, and I just want to say, I do not feel that way. I think this is very necessary. We really have been talking about it since I've been on the board. People have been coming and the emails and about how these kids are struggling, and there's got to be a better way to do this. And I feel like this is just a small thing that we're doing now, like trying to get the SEL in there, trying to, and trusting that we have hired great people who can do this. And I say we, not really we, but you definitely hiring people, having people come in who we think are going to be able to create a dynamic curriculum that everyone will like, that the kids will enjoy, but you have to do it. You can't just talk about it, number one, which we do a lot of, and you have to take the chance. So I feel like we compromise a lot. We said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's roll it out freshman and sophomore year, because really sophomore time, nothing. I feel like that's a good compromise. And grade this curriculum, and if it's great, you're heroes. If not, you can rework things. It's not like nothing's written in stone ever, but I feel like there's no trust. Like, there's no trust that we're really trying to do something good for everybody. And I'm sorry if that, I don't want to say my feelings are hurt, because my feelings aren't hurt. I'm sorry that people feel like that we're up here just trying to hurt their kids. And then some of the stuff said tonight, I don't know. I'm just like so taken back by it. Like, it's making me emotional. So I'm like, wow. I can't believe someone's saying that about the school district they're saying their kids to. Like, and that's how they feel. It's sad to me. It's really sad that people can come up here and say some stuff like that. So that's how I feel.
Can I just add also one other thing that has been mentioned? And I certainly hope, we've talked a lot about this, that there's more to the work that needs to be done in addition to revamping, reworking the health. We've talked a lot about the culture, the climate. That really still needs to be addressed in terms of the sports, the extracurriculars, going through handbooks, going through guidelines. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's a part of this too. We're not just doing this in a vacuum, we're looking at the whole thing so that we are addressing the stress that kids are feeling and why they are feeling it. Is there a limit you can put on an extracurricular? Is it unrealistic to say, 3 hours, 4 hours? We need to look at that too. That's a piece of it. It's not just let's work on curriculum. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback on what both of you just said. It made me sad hearing some of the comments. There are some comments about teachers that made me upset. I think, when talking about culture and climate, we're looking at the culture and climate in the schools for the staff too, not just the students. And obviously it's all interconnected. And I think it makes me sad thinking over the last bunch of years in public education in New Jersey, how negative the climate has been overall. And so there's still obviously all the same issues we've been struggling with over the past decade of school funding problems and money and all of those stressors on school districts and everything. But I just, I really hope that people can try to work together and have a positive, attitude. I think, there's these teams that have formed at the high school, and a lot of teachers have volunteered to be on these SEL committees and stuff. I think a lot of people have positive energy, and I really hope that a couple people made comments, about having seen a positive change at the high school. I really hope that people give everyone a chance, to work together. And everyone here, I think, wants the best for the kids and wants the same outcome.
I am not going to try and address the whole issue, and you could pick curriculum or you could pick SEL, but one thing that I've seen through the years, the board discussed things in much more detail in the past, and the committee reports were a basis for discussion. The full board was given the committee, the committees reported to the board, and then the board discussed what the committees resolved and why they made the decisions. And, well, that doesn't happen anymore. But we used to go until 11, 12 o'clock every night. We do now with the audience talking, but the board doesn't have a lot of discussion. I'll give you what I think is an excellent example. We had some student stressors about a year or two ago, and we decided to set up a SEL committee. I don't know one thing that the SEL committee has addressed. I don't know what they've tried to fix, because it's done at the committee level. It's not at the board level, it's not at the public level, it's at the committee level. And I think, in my opinion, much of the work of this board is done in little private groups, the committees. It's not done at the board level, and I think that's a major concern. So I find a tremendous difference in this board, and if I go back 20 years, what a difference in how we operate.
We're at Fort Farm, so
I just want to say something about, the SEL committee, because I can't resist. Mike, the SEL committee reports to the board every meeting that we've had a committee. Karen did it at the last meeting. It's been done monthly for the entire existence of the committee, and even the public can tell you some of the things that the Board of Education SEL committee has addressed as it relates to.
Well, give me a couple.
Well, how about the school spirit at Ridge High School? How about the?
I don't remember discussing that with the board level, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's a different topic. But I'm going to talk, that's why I wanted the microphone back, was not to address that, but specifically to point something out. Someone earlier was kind enough to express their appreciation for the changes at Ridge High School relating to the look, the feel, the energy, the positivity, the welcoming, and feeling. And I hear that from my Ridge High School student as well. And thank you very much, Mr. Krause. I know you're doing a lot of work. And let me share something that I know three of us were at the 11th grade does Project Citizen for their honors government. And so some board members were asked to come along with some township committee members to be a question and answer panel for the students because they need to identify a topic for their project. And I think we would probably all agree, we were shocked beyond words at the absolute negativity spewing from some of the kids about the beautiful green arbors that are scattered through Ridge High School now. We can't please all of the people all of the time, and we love nothing more, and I say we, meaning human beings, I don't mean board members or administrators or audience members, we just can't do it. You look around Ridge High School, it looks so great, and there's just a different energy to it since this task has been taken on, and Mr. Cross has taken it to heart. But there are kids who literally looked us in the face and said, I know where I go to school, I don't need a green R to tell me, but what about X, Y, or Z, which is their particular issue? And it wasn't one student. So it's extremely difficult to address all of the needs of everyone. And hard work is being done to try to do just that. So I just, because it was mentioned, and I agree with whichever speaker brought it up, because I think it's terrific, but it is interesting to know that there are kids who go to school at Ridge every day who don't feel the same way that speaker and myself and other people here tonight do. And then there's two other things relative to public comment I'd just like to touch on quickly. One is with a personal story. My dear friend Stella brought up the topic of Ridge High School freshmen hearing about college from day 2. And Lydia, my daughter, who is a senior in college, drove an 8-year-old to summer camp all summer 2 summers ago, and every day he talked about going to Stanford. Every day for 4 weeks of summer camp. It's not starting in 9th grade. It's not a culture in Ridge High School. It gets in there long before they get there. So we have that to contend with as a community as well. It's not just what we can do inside the confines of one school building.
So I know we were going to talk a little bit about the book that we were reading too, and I really do feel like there's a distinct difference between talking about the health curriculum, which, as Jennifer pointed out, we've got certain things that have to be taught. We know that the teachers are looking at that curriculum in the lessons. And I appreciate your comment, Tim, about it's, they are kind of brought together. But the idea behind SEL, and what we read and what we know and what we've been trying to do for years, is promote a sense of community, identifying the stressors in the school, and getting a student-directed type of program. That is what the SEL basis is that I can understand. And so that, when parents are saying we're not asking the kids what they want, it's all part of what this SEL stuff is that we're trying to get into place. And it's on many levels. I mean, it's administrators, it's students, it's us, it's the parents, it's the families. But it's a process, and we get feedback about, well, we don't want to hear about this stuff anymore. And that's frustrating because we know that there's so much that needs to happen. And we're not working in a silo as much as that. We're not a silo on it. We listen. Some of us have been involved in education for many, many, many years, not corporate, but education, and we do actually not work in a silo on those types.
I'd like to add one more story. Years ago, we were hiring a new superintendent. I don't know, it was 25 years, might have been 30 years ago, Adrienne O'Neill. And we told her we wanted a presentation of every component of the district once a year, the strengths and weaknesses of that component, whether it be the finance committee or whether it be the health plan or whether it be you pick anything you want to. And she said, I can't accept the job because I'm going to address items that the audience and the public is going to disagree with me. And so she rejected the job. Well, we finally convinced her to come back and we talked. She said, I'm going to get fired within 5 years. We said, well, that's not our problem. We want a complete review of, let's say, special ed. We want to know how the program's working, in detail, in public. And she finally accepted the job. 5 years later, the board changed and she was let go. I still get a Christmas card from her, and she was a great superintendent. But there's a problem with this analysis. We do make enemies. We do cause people concerns. But it's the only way you find out what's going on in all the components of the district. And we don't do that anymore. And I don't blame the board for not doing it, because they're going to make enemies. And it's the only way you make the district better.
I have to talk about that because I feel like making enemies is we want to hear from people, and I think that's why we've been frustrated, because we're not communicating directly with people in the community. Email is a kind of weird thing, it's a one-way thing, and we can't respond as individuals to emails that were sent to the whole board, because it was sent to the entire board, and we can only speak as one person. So unless we're going to individually, all 9 of us reach out to, like, you know, everyone individually, there's no, you know, good way to communicate. So I think we're always willing to talk to people and listen to community concerns. I don't think, you know, making enemies is, you know, the way I would view the job. But I think, you know, listening to honest feedback and concerns it is, right? I mean, I don't know.
Can somebody just address the fact that we did not edit the video from last week or whatever, the last meeting? I mean, what the problem has been?
Okay, well, we'll leave. So do we have any other comments before, if you want to talk about the vote, let's hold that for a second. Any other comments at this point? Or should I let Nick?
I agree that we should not each respond with all the emails and letters. And I do believe, though, that we ought to discuss them in general, maybe not specifically, but the points made by the people who are writing. They ought to be discussed at the board. I don't think. I do. And
When they come in or all at once?
I pick them up on Monday mornings. Okay? Because I don't do the emails, I get copies of them. And some of them are important enough to talk about. And we don't talk about it at the board level. And I don't want to know that you responded, because I want to hear the response.
And we don't respond to individual concerns about students. I mean, a lot of emails we're getting are
The concern is that
specific.
we're not doing a good job of special ed. I want to hear the board's response. I want to hear the administration's response. I want to participate in that discussion. And yet it disappears.
My concern, I think it's what Robert was just saying, that is that, and you know me, and many of you do, if you sit in the audience for a long time, you have concerns, you bring other people's concerns with you, and I've spoken to several of you on the phone on a frequent basis. When I sat out there, I called the board member when I had a question. I didn't make a unilateral decision that I could read that person's mind and then send an email that addresses 9 people who, as Robert just pointed out, could have varying opinions on a particular topic. We make ourselves accessible so that we can share what our understanding, our view of what we've learned in our capacity as one of knowledge and one of awareness. But to Robert's point, one email can address many opinions and response to a concern. Then when we bring the fact that some of this are personal, individual, unique student situations, it's not actually board member business to get down in the nitty-gritty of individual student records and private student information. So I don't know even how to move forward with this.
I will give you one response and then I'm going to keep quiet. Curriculum, minutes and things, I could never understand it. I wanted to know more. And I would call Karen and I would say, can you meet me someplace? And can you explain what's going on in the curriculum? You're not doing it at the board level. But can you at least help me understand it? And my gosh, she met with me, I don't know how many times. What a wonderful thing she did. And I'll always be appreciative of it. But that discussion didn't take place at the board level, it should have. It took place over a cup of coffee. And thank goodness she was willing to explain, because it was an hour or two to go through the minutes. But I want to thank her for that, but the board never heard the discussion. And that's my concern. Some of this stuff.
The board all has the opportunity to ask questions in the minutes come out. And other people, I'm sure, also.
I think it belongs at the board level, these discussions.
So,
Well, that's no good to the board. I don't know what's going on.
that's why we send the minutes out, so people can ask questions.
I understand, that's why the committees have to report to the board, and what you report out is, here's what we've decided. You don't tell us what the considerations were and why you rejected that plan. You tell us only the conclusions, and that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to the public, and it's unacceptable to the board.
You're not speaking the truth. If you go back to last month's minutes, take any, well, maybe not policy, where there's probably less discussion, there's a lot of communication, but any of the topics you're suggesting, just look at last time's curriculum minutes and the discussion relating to the health. There were at least 9 to 11 bullet points about, and I read them all, and you could go back and watch the video, and you would see that all of them were spoken aloud in front of the public and the board, and the opportunity existed to ask questions. That's when the discussion would have been.
You either didn't discuss it at the committee level, or you didn't present it, because that had to be discussed on the pros and cons, or the fact that you were going to take away the gym classes or the study halls. All of that had to be discussed. It wasn't brought forward at the board level at all. The public brought it forward.
I think this is turning into a deja vu conversation. Like, does anyone else feel that they're not getting appropriate minutes and chances to ask their
I think
questions?
it's a disgrace.
The minutes that are published have nothing.
That's, can I say that?
It's one-way conversation.
Every meeting is pretty down. So if you don't feel that the published minutes, they are something, there's no way.
That someone could write every word of a 4-hour
Every
meeting.
word to be captured, there's just no way to do that. That is why we videotape it too. You can hear
Do you
every.
videotape the committee meetings? Well, that's what I want to know about. What happened at the committee level? You keep that a secret.
You could choose to serve on another committee or something.
The committees serve the board, but they don't. They serve themselves.
Okay, I think we should move on. Did you want to respond to anything before we move on to?
Sure, so a couple of things. There was a statement made that the board doesn't care about the students in special education. So I just want to point out in defense of the board, I don't agree with that. I do think that the board cares about all of the students. With regard to the question of the video that was published from the last Board of Ed meeting, I didn't get a chance to watch that video, but I certainly will. It certainly is not the intent to censor comments. As far as I've given direction, we start at the beginning of the meeting when it's called to order, and we record until the meeting is adjourned, and that's when the recording is supposed to end. So certainly I will be more than happy to check on that issue and see if there's anything to be corrected there. There's a bunch of things. I just wanted to thank folks for some positive feedback about the G&T presentation, and thank both Ms. Fox and the teachers who came to report on that. Also, it was very thorough. There were some questions about my comments with respect to the health program. So to be clear, for next year we were talking about 3 weeks for sophomores. The question came up, what would happen the following year and the following year? So we're working on that. We're trying to be responsive to what the public asked us to do, which was to kind of slow down. And that was the message that I heard, slow down and take more time to look at how you're using the time that you have. We will do that, but I cannot promise one way or another whether or not that might result in more time. I anticipate it may well result in more time for potentially sophomores and or juniors going forward, but certainly not next year, and the jury's still out on that question. But I appreciate the question, I understand the question. As far as whether or not topics might be better off in senior year versus junior year, we can certainly talk about that and understand that question as well. I do agree that we want to involve parents and students. I'm not sure that we want kids writing the curriculum per se. Someone was talking about where does the stress come from. It's an extremely complicated question. I think it comes from a lot of different places. Is it sports? Potentially yes for some kids. Is it after-school activities? Potentially yes for some kids. Academics? Potentially yes. Peers? Potentially yes. Parents? Potentially yes. Teachers? Possibly. And for some kids, probably a mix of all of those different things. I'd like the comments also about measuring impact on SEL. I think it's going to be a challenge, but worthy of our efforts to try to do that. Sorry. The question of a presentation with regard to special education, I will be happy to try to make that happen this year. I agree that it was discussed in the past. I'll get together with Jean and we'll talk about when we might be able to get that done this year. And that's about it.
That's the most complex or best answer I've heard to why the kids are depressed and suicides and all of these other questions. That it is very, very complex. And I can guarantee that the health department is not ready to discuss that in any detail because they haven't analyzed it very well. So what Nick listed, I think, was the beginnings of a great discussion because it hasn't been done. How could you teach health if you haven't even solved what's causing the problem? Yes, the sex and the drugs and things, that's simple. But these other things, depression and suicides, and those are much more complicated, and we haven't got the answers to those questions yet.
You guys want to, or you want to hold it for next time? Yeah? Okay, so we'll talk about the book. Book out the book. I got my book. It's right.
I'm ready to go. I'll do my 3 quick points here. Okay, so the book was a lot of rhetoric and seemed corny at times, which I kind of skipped because I wanted to see, like, what are the solutions, right? Here's some solutions here. You guys are the experts. One thing I thought was interesting was what Jen was saying before about kind of like this buddy system, kind of personal contact we do at elementary schools. And the book makes a note of this, that SEL is a focus in elementary school, it's a focus in middle school, and then it kind of traditionally just drops off in high school. And that, I think, is one of the points, is to put it on the continuum. The thing I thought as part of this solution was this community-wide buy-in by everybody, from parents to teachers, everybody, which is a huge, heavy lift. So that's why I was kind of looking for some specific examples. That's where the buddy system came in. One thing I thought was pretty cool was that they, one school that the author counseled for or something, had a staff member get assigned like 3 or 4 kids, and then they would check in with those 3 or 4 kids, like random, not their students, every marking period or every part of learning right period. I thought that was kind of a cool idea. I don't know if we implement that. I don't know if any school does except for this guy's. The 2 principles to remember. So there are 10 principles to remember. Number 6 was recognize that a new program also must be considered an evolving one. So I think that's what we're generally talking about, right? Like, this thing's a living beast, and we're trying to move it in the right direction. And then number 9, I thought was interesting too, was be explicit, because we talked about, and in the book there's a focus of weaving SEL into the curriculum, and we hear that phrase a lot, and that's why I wasn't really understanding how that's possible across different subject matter, but that was a focus of, take 5 minutes out of class here, 5 minutes out of class here, but the idea was be explicit, so you have to let the kids know, like, we're going to take 5 minutes to, relax a little bit, or we're going to do a program on vaping now because vaping is bad. Like, it's kind of like the say no to drugs mentality, and the be explicit I thought was an interesting one, that it was in the the top 10 principles of getting SEL going. So those are my points.
Yep, I hear what you're saying, because you could kind of skim, because it's a little dated, a little bit, look back at it, it's kind of old. But it has a lot of good points about some of the SEL stuff. But I like when he was saying organizing an adult advisor program, but I thought that I'm a big proponent of the hormone thing, because I feel like, even though, I don't know if we can get like, as deep as they get in here because we have a bigger school or whatever. And, you know, our kids, I feel like when they have good parents, they come from like loving families, it seems. It's not like, you know, I feel like we have a good base of work with it, just like a little, just emphasizing more of it, you know? So I feel like having a home, for some reason, always, it's like a home base at school where you can kind of get eyeballs on. I mean, that's just like one of the things, that's how I kind of like looked at that, like advisor or adult advisor program. You have someone who sees the same kids every day, kind of like a, thing like that. Also how, they also talk about keeping athletics healthy, which I felt was, we all talked about that, and I thought that was very important. You know, it says that schools with extensive athletic program. Wait, I guess. But also, you know, touching base, you know, some like every season, seeing how things are going. I don't know, I thought that was good, and also like creating the transition groups, was talking about like the, I guess the freshmen, which is what we're trying to do with the, on the transition to high school, which I like. And then, also the recognize that a new program was supposed to be considered a evolving one. That is like, yo, speaking to me. Also, I like 7, which says, don't presume that students have mastered such important basic skills. Because, you know, they haven't. I mean, you see with the cheating, with the, you know, they're not mastering some of these skills that just have to be emphasized. And I think we're taking baby steps to that way to do it. And I don't believe the whole book talks to our school system, but I do think there's a lot of stuff we need to pull out and make it more relevant to us. I think like they're kind of behind where like they talk about computers, kids sit in front of their computers, and now they walk around with computers like every second of every day. So it's a whole nother, you know, it could be a whole nother book on that, you know. So, but that's just what I took out. But like, I think we're doing a lot of the stuff that they talk about in this book. In the book, we really are ahead of it, kind of. But there's a lot of other things that can be, we can, you know, build on.
I like when you talked about don't assume they know stuff, because I mean the colleges are struggling, because I mean I see it with my students, I noticed it just in the last 4 years, the students that I have at Rutgers that change, they're not, a lot of them aren't equipped to cope, I mean, and they're not learning the skills, you know, so I think to assume they know this stuff by high school is just not. Yeah. The other thing I noticed in the book that was interesting was talking about getting student input. It was talking about how, yeah, the students really like to they like to give back and they like to do community service, and so it's like a wonderful way to get them involved. We have so many students at Ridge and so many clubs doing so much of this stuff already. There's got to be a way to mobilize, you know, since they've already got the clubs formed and stuff, to like incorporate some of the clubs, already formed clubs, you know what I mean, into the efforts, because it's not like our kids are sitting around not doing community service or not being involved, you know what I mean, and giving back. They are.
Well, it's hard to, community service is a tough one, I feel like, because sometimes people just check a box, and it's hard to get beyond that. Community service is just like, oh, that's military on my resume. Like, you
But
know,
maybe that's a good discussion for the club to have, you know, the
Right.
members of the club, like, why are we really doing this, and what's the point of it, and like, what else can we do, or how can we do it different?
To tie into Mike's asked a lot of, you know, what's the answer, what's the fix? The very conclusion says, promoting a positive, challenging SEL program in a school is neither a quick fix nor an easy answer to the many issues young people face. It requires ongoing reflection, adjustment, and a long-term commitment to help students develop all of their potential as individuals. I think that just ties into exactly to everything that we've been talking about, which is we recognize we do not have all the answers, and there is no quick fix, but we have to keep trying.
Something that hasn't been mentioned yet,
They mentioned the importance of the health program for SEL, so I thought that was sort of relevant. Talking about yeah, so it says in schools where SEL lessons are integrated into all disciplines, there should be a special link with the school health program. And the health program can give students the information they need to handle various problems during childhood and adolescence, help them make good decisions in the face of peer pressure, substance abuse, and so forth. So that was kind of reinforcing to what we've been talking about in the last several weeks. And I agree with some of the other points that have been raised about involving coaches and they talked about some special events, and I think that's already happening to some extent.
I left the last meeting, and I think I mentioned to a couple people that feeling to some degree, wow, we are so lucky as a district that we get to talk about this high-level stuff. Like, we're not talking about, this parent heard last time was saying she was in a school district which is in Linden. Like, yeah, you have totally different problems. So, but as Nick commented to me, like, okay, we're talking about pyramids, we can always kind of talk about the topic pyramid. And I think one of the things that I think would resound with our families too is that when we're trying to address SEL problems, it's not just for their mental health and we think it's good for them, but when kids are stuck in these spots that they can't get beyond whatever is taking over their lives, they're not learning. They're not as involved in their academics. They're not achieving as much. And that, some of the research that we've had, as old as it is, it shows that once you start taking some of those pieces and addressing them, their academic achievement goes up. Without adding stress, without adding extra classes, without adding extra homework, but everybody's achievement goes up a little bit when we're addressing some of these social emotional learning pieces of the bottom of that top here. So, we should be thankful we're lucky to be not worrying about our kids starving and major school safety and things.
I thought that was a really good point, especially not to just brothers. There were a couple of things. The book talks about a coordinator for all of this, and it sounds like that's a crucial role to really bring the unified program to life and to some measure of success. So I thought that was an interesting aspect. I also agree with Jen about the advisor program. I think that's a great thing to consider for our district. They also talked about periodic wellness days, and I think that'd be an interesting addition. And I wonder, there was a lot of talk a year and a half, 2 years ago about, what happened to Challenge Day? Where did it go? Could we get it back? What would it mean? Etc. And I know we have a neighboring high school that we recently visited that still does Challenge Day, so I wonder if there's an opportunity there. And I can't, I know I'm a broken record, but I can't emphasize it enough. The book repeatedly emphasizes that athletics are a huge part of this, and I'm going to read a sentence. It is essential that the coaching staff operate with the same fundamental philosophy that the faculty and the administration do during the school day. Students don't benefit when they receive contradictory messages from whoever. And that's again sort of re-emphasized in number 5 in what chapter it is. But that skills must be modeled as well as taught. So it's one thing to teach them, but if that's not what they're seeing in action, and we know there have been recent examples of less than good modeling. So even if we elect not to go forward with a program exactly like what this somewhat dated book suggests, I think there are pieces we can take away that we know sort of instinctively are the right thing to do. And then one last thing. Well, I wanted to say, first of all, that there's a point at which it talks about theme-based assemblies, which I think we're talking about in these 10 lessons, so I think that's obviously, on the right path. And it also talks about thinking about class dynamics as well as content, just how the class works.
maybe then we'll have a more robust and dynamic the way, that we all sort of envision. The one thing I will say in terms of special events and wellness days, we have talked several times also with the years about having a no tech day. I would love to see us eventually get to the place where we can have that. And I really think that social media is a wonderful thing for our students. I think it's brainwashing them. It's telling them, what to like, what not to like, what's cool, what's funny. They're totally desensitizing it. I see it in my own kids, things that they think are so funny. I'm calling them out. Sometimes I have to have really difficult conversations about things they posted and how, like things that are embarrassing for one person can be mortifying if it's out there, So I just think that it's a dangerous thing. I think it influences them to engage in risky behavior that they're not even aware is risky anymore. Yeah, and they're just, and honestly, the stuff that just pops up on YouTube is they're being exposed to way too much, way too soon. You can't unsee some of that stuff. Right. So I think that we're going to have to take it on as a school to start talking about social media and etiquette and things like that. Actually, even from the smallest ages, because the smallest kids have things to do. Yeah. Sorry. I think we're on the right track.
Conversation to be continued, obviously not necessarily specifically the book, but whole conversation. That's okay.
It's getting late, so I wasn't sure. Everybody did a nice job of summarizing 50 pages, so I didn't want to. Did I know? I typed up. No. So the one thing that, and Stephanie's not here tonight, so I thought I would speak for her. Hopefully she'll agree with me here. Is the book talks about the role of the counselor too. I think in our district we see the counselor at the Ridge much more as a college and career counselor to a lesser extent. But there's another piece, obviously. Their certificates are school counselors. That's the certificate they have. So the book talks a lot about using them and them being an asset for our teachers, whether it's them coming in and doing a mini lesson with the teacher, helping the teacher plan. I know Stephanie and Kristen have already tapped the potential and the expertise with planning the in-service days for our staff with our guidance counselors. So I know that there's a lot there, and Stephanie's already started to talk to them about that. And I think, the book does speak to that, and I think the counselors are excited and willing to do that. And that also speaks to developing and cultivating a better relationship with our students too, because I know we've heard even at board meetings that the counselor and students maybe don't have as much contact time as they would like. So it's another opportunity to develop a relationship in a classroom setting. And I thought the author did a nice job of kind of speaking to that important point too. So that was the one thing that I highlighted in here.
I'm just looking to see if Drew is still over there. Yeah. Somebody poke him, make sure he's.
So, no, this is, I noticed something that Drew and I have talked about a few times, which is the idea of students kind of getting involved in some type of school mission statement and involving them in building that. I talked about that a little bit earlier tonight, and I just wanted to point that out because I know that it's something I think would be great for the kids to be involved in.
Anyone else? Okay, so I guess we're up to adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion? Jen Wade and Linda.